Okay, all righty. The hour of 7:33, I think, is now upon us. So I'd like to call to order tonight's meeting for our study session for Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021. And before we get started, I just want to let members of our audience know that we do have good social distancing as we're live tonight, as you'll see from the TV in the boardroom, but we also do have many people present via Zoom. So that's why some of us are masked and some of us are not. So roll call, please, Ruth Ann.
Member Carter,
Here.
Member Demmett,
Here.
Member Patton,
Here.
Member Plosky,
Here.
Member Fisher is here, Vice President Exum,
Here.
and President Hall.
Here. And it's great to see everybody, I have to say. It's surreal, but it's wonderful to see everybody in person again. So welcome to everybody. Citizen statements, I don't believe we have any.
In writing.
Okay,
Let's check with Lori. Nothing. You've been outside? Okay, none in person.
and do we have a call for an executive session after tonight's meeting? Okay. Do we have an approval then for tonight's agenda?
So moved.
So moved. Seconded.
Okay. That moved and seconded, roll call please. Ms.
Member
Ann?
Carter,
Yes.
Member Demmett,
Yes.
Member Patton,
Yes.
Member Plosky,
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes, Vice President Exum,
Yes.
and President Hall.
Yes, agenda is approved. And I'm sorry, I also forgot to mention that running the camera tonight is Jason Liggett, who usually does it for us, but he's actually here in person. And John Gutzmer, our Chief Information Officer, has been kind enough to help us get all of this in order. I meant to say that at the beginning and completely forgot because I'm discombobulated doing this live. So, okay, moving on to our administrative reports. Do we have any administrative reports before we get to our study topics? Okay. And it doesn't look like we have any policy reviews either. And the action items that are listed, I don't believe we have any at all tonight, do we? You know? Okay, seems weird. We're moving straight into our study topics then, and we do have quite a few this evening. So we'll start with our first 10.1 on the agenda, the Cunningham Township Supervisor Office Intergovernmental Agreement Draft. We're going to go over with Todd Taylor.
Good evening, everybody. I have the pleasure of formalizing an agreement between the school district and the township regarding collaborating and coordinating access to the township program that provides emergency housing for families of students enrolled in Urbana School District 116. Dr. Ivor Tatum and I and Linda Gibbons and a few other staff members have had a few meetings with staff from the township regarding this program. And the board was provided with a draft of the intergovernmental agreement, fairly short as those agreements go. And again, this is a collaborative effort to provide access to the emergency housing program that they run. We have with us tonight, I know Jasmine Hernandez from the Cunningham Township office is here tonight. She oversees that program, so she will be chatting with us a little bit tonight about some of the specifics of the program. I did, before we do that though, I did want to talk with the board and just kind of hit some of the main points of what's in that intergovernmental agreement. Part of it is the district will have staff, and that'll probably end up being our social workers and family liaisons that'll be coordinating with the township on referral to the program, helping our families complete screening and application materials required, helping with referrals to other programs and supports available in the county. The township would provide our staff that I had mentioned with some professional development and orientation and how the program works, how the forms work, how to support our families. We have something in there about affirming that of course, both the district and the township will make sure we have written consent from families before sharing any information regarding specific family information, and that there are no fees or other direct costs associated with the program for the district, to the district. So there's no financial piece of this other than we will be working together to support our families. So that's kind of the gist of what's in the agreement. And I know Jasmine is here with us tonight. And so I thought maybe Jasmine could just give a quick overview of what the program looks like, and then we can answer any questions about the program or the proposed agreement. I would also say, kind of in keeping with how the board prefers to do things, we're bringing it before you tonight. We're not asking for a vote tonight. We will bring it back to you at the next meeting, answer any questions you might have, and hopefully move forward from there. So Jasmine, I'm going to kick it over to you so you can chat about the program a little bit.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for meeting with us. And Danielle will be joining us in a few minutes. She's having some tech issues. But as John said, I am the main case manager leading the program. I started this program very early on and been working to implement it as effectively as possible. So overall, what we're really looking to do is to strengthen the relationship between the Urbana School District and township, because we understand that there is a certain population out there that's very vulnerable, that's falling through the cracks. And that's our main goal of this program, is to make sure that they're not falling through the cracks. And these are families whose children either are attending Urbana School District or have spent a night at Crisis Nursery, and they have no other resources available to them, and they don't have a support system around them. So these are the types of families that we really want to offer these services to, which is why the relationship with the school district is so important, because I feel that you are some of the front line that the students are first interacting with, that can first become aware of the situation. These are families that are homeless, whether it's been one night or several nights. They're out in the streets, living in places that aren't meant for human habitation. So right now we're working with Roadway Inn, and we are, so our project, or our program, is funded through what's called our angel donor funds. And we've been very fortunate that our donors have been so kind to us, that we are able to provide between 2 to 4 hotel rooms, and that will be depending on the funding, but the program will never just go away. So at any time, we'll have between 2 to 4 rooms for those families that have children in either Urbana school districts or have used Crisis Nursery, and the referrals are mainly coming from Urbana school district and Crisis Nursery, but we are working very closely to get referrals from anybody and really help these families out. And I can answer any questions you guys have.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. Any questions at this point?
Hi, this is Peggy. Sounds like a wonderful program. Is this the first time we've had such a intergovernmental agreement with the township? I mean, I know the township's been providing this kind of aid to our community for a long time, but is this the first time we've formalized our agreement?
I believe it is, yes. I think that it came to light that we really needed to work on a stronger relationship with the community, and with that, the people that are getting the front line when it's not us. People are getting referred to us through other agencies, and sometimes it just falls through. So, but yeah, we're very excited about this.
Well, thank you. And I know that the Angel Fund provides tremendous help to people in the community. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's been amazing.
And Peggy, I would say you brought up a good point too, that even as we've been working on this agreement, our staff and families have had access to this program, and our social workers have been working with the township staff to refer families as needed. And this is an attempt to formalize that commitment between our two organizations.
Thank you.
Any other board questions?
I just want to thank you for doing this formalization. It's an essential service for our community, but it'd be interesting for us to be able to kind of track the number of referrals over time so we can determine how effective we're being at show that there's a correlation and a need that's going on here.
We will certainly keep track of families that we are, numbers and some of that kind of thing going forward.
There's no type of sunset on this or re-upping it or things on amending it?
So that was not something, it was actually one of our attorneys that drafted this. That was not something that she put in there. If that's something that the board would like us to look at, we certainly can.
Well, and right now, I think it is tied specifically to their funding and the grant.
I'm sorry, the video cut out. Was there a question for me?
So there was a question about sunsetting the agreement, but we didn't put that in specifically because this is all grant funded based on the grants that you guys have been receiving through the township.
Right, yes, through our donors, yes, that's how it's been funded.
I would not be opposed to a periodic review as opposed, a firm sunset would connote that we're planning on discontinuing it after a certain period of time. But an evaluation, every other intergovernmental agreement we have, whether it's with the city or with Park District or whatever, has an end date that forces us to evaluate to see if we're doing it appropriately, if there's changes that need to be made. And it's a time for both sides to look at it and see if there's a way to augment it, to improve it. And so I would be in favor of some kind of routine. If we say we'll just evaluate it sometime tends to be pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. But if there's and then all of a sudden it's not evaluated and things get out of whack and people get angry with each other. So I think it's better if we have a set time so that both sides are prepared or are preparing with an idea that there's a date certain that we would look at it.
So John, I know with some other agreements I've been part of, we've made it basically a 3-year agreement. We look at it every year, and then after 3 years, we might rewrite it or just redo it, something along those lines.
That sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, I'll work.
If that's appropriate with the township.
Sure.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say Danielle was having some technical issues, but she's in now, so I didn't know if she wanted to, if she's kind of picked up on this part of the conversation.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I had to switch from my phone to my one computer. I'm not on my partner's computer, so I figured it out. I was having a lot of tech issues getting in. But we honestly, this is a new program for us, and we consider the school district to be a really key partner in making it happen. And I would like us to do continuous evaluation. And one of the things that we requested when we met with the superintendent and vice superintendents, assistant superintendents, was that we essentially would like, since it's a fairly new program, for us to have regular feedback and input. We only have 2 partners, key partners at this point, Crisis Nursery and USD 116. And the reason why is because we serve Urbana children and families. And so essentially, either you have your children in Urbana schools or your children are staying overnight at Crisis Nursery. That essentially proves your residency. And then we saw the dire need for this program when the ROE program stopped due to some concerns around case management. And we've really met with that crew and learned from some of those issues, and it built a program that we piloted during COVID for 6 months. It's been very successful, very few concerns. We've been able to support a lot of families in ways that are comprehensive and clear, and we're tracking outreach strategies and have data that we're able to show and share with our partners in terms of where the families exit, whether to friends and family, to permanent housing, to the emergency family shelter, which is really takes about a month to 45 days to get into. So we're able to provide that data back to our partners. So we really see this as a tight relationship that meets a need that the school district, that case managers have brought to our attention, principals have brought to our attention, and we certainly saw in our community the need, because there frankly was no same-day shelter for women and children or parents and children in this community. And township felt strongly that we needed to fill that gap, since it is the role of township to locally fill the gaps in our community. So yes, I would say we are open to re-looking at the agreement on annual basis or every 3 years. And I would actually want us to, you know, be in contact quarterly at the beginning to really, not necessarily with the Board of Education, but with your staff, making sure that we're really meeting the need, and that we're collaborating closely with you. So I don't know if that answers your question entirely, but happy to answer any other questions you have.
Yeah, it does. And, but I think, I agree that the staff-to-staff constant evaluation should be ongoing and uninterrupted, if you want to call it, you know, constant, like, but every once in a while, we do need to get it up to the level of the board, both the township board and as well as the school board, and force our attention on it to make sure that things are being, that things are as good as they can possibly be, and that we don't have some ideas for improvements. I do have one other question. Oh, thank you, Danielle. I do have one other question in that have we, this is internal, but have we considered the fact that our borders are far bigger than the townships? And so is our staff prepared to deal with this in terms of what we do with families that live outside the township lines?
Could
John,
I
I would-
actually answer that question to clarify the program? The program will serve all families with children in Urbana schools. So, and let me explain the funding piece of that, because I think it's important. The township actually has expanded. We, of course, as you know, we're taxpayer funded by the people of Urbana, and they have generously agreed by 63% of the vote to increase our tax levy. So we intend to make this program a permanent program, ever evolving, of course, but permanent as long as the need exists. If there's some other organization that takes over that need, we would gladly, you know, move on to the next need. But we are also funded through two other sources that are important. One is private donations that actually come from, I mean, we've had donations as far as Florida. So they mostly come from Urbana and Champaign. There are some donations that come from outside the communities in the county. And then of course, there's a few outside of the state. But those dollars are discretionary. And right now, the emergency housing program is 100% privately funded. So we actually have broad discretion. We're going to be changing that with our 5-year strategic plan that I'm bringing to the town board this spring, in that some of it will be funded through taxpayer dollars with that levy increase. The third source of income that we have is from the state of Illinois. We receive ESG funds, which is Emergency Solutions Grant funds, and those funds support rapid rehousing at this point. There is an emergency shelter fund at the state level, and we could consider going for those funds. So I'm very cognizant that as we support people outside of the township, it'll be important to bring dollars in from outside of the township, and we currently do that. So I just want to be clear, your staff is not going to have to vet. If you have children in Urbana schools, we will serve them. And if they live outside of Urbana, we will serve them with private dollars.
That is excellent to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, so,
And I bring that up because we had that same issue with the library board.
oh, yes.
In terms of our district is outside the library, so how did our students that lived outside the library district use the library services? And so we came to a mutual understanding on that. So it sounds like you're way ahead of us, way ahead of me on this, and that's fantastic. That's great, because I was really worried about inside and outside.
Well, you can thank the angel donors who donated over $75,000 to date to us in the last 12 months. They've made this possible, and we thank them.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we'll make that change with our attorney, and Danielle, we'll get that added before you take it to your meeting next Monday.
Absolutely. Great.
Okay.
Yep. So our town board will be confirming whatever you confirm tonight will be before the Monday, just so you know. And you all are, of course, welcome to attend. It's at 7 o'clock. Excuse me,
we'll
it's
put-
at 6:30. I don't know why I said that. That's the city council. It's at 6:30 on Monday.
Okay. And so we'll bring this back to a formal second approval for you guys on the 16th at our business meeting with those additions.
Great. Great.
Well, thank you very much, Todd and Danielle and Jasmine for bringing this to us. I'm looking forward to taking a vote on it next time around. And if anybody has any other questions, bring them forward for the next meeting. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. We look forward to the partnership.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next study topic. We have 10.2, which is the Stiefel bond report. Ann Noble from Stiefel is going to be here I believe she's here to bring information to us regarding the potential for refinancing our current debt and issuing bonds for upcoming projects. We've got Carol here too.
So I'm going to actually let Carol introduce Ann.
Okay.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to, in anticipation of our next study topic tonight, which is the Thomas Paine renovation, we knew there would be questions about how we would finance this project. So Ann and I have been talking over the last couple of months. So I wanted to invite her tonight just to talk about our borrowing capacity, how we would be able to do this, combining our rolling working cash, that $3 million that we do every 3 years. That along with the Thomas Paine financing and then potentially some refinancing as well, all into one package. And it's obviously a great time to be doing this. She'll talk a little bit about how the rates are at historical lows right now. So Ann, I will turn it over to you. Ann Noble from Stiefel. Hi, Ann.
Good evening, everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, lovely. It's nice to see everyone. All right, I'm going to share my screen. I think this will work for me. Or Lori, can somebody let me share my screen? Will that work?
Got it, John. Yep.
There we go. Awesome. All right. Okay, perfect. Can everybody see that now? All right. We are going to focus on the page that was in your board packet, but I'll put that up on the screen just for purposes of discussion. And then I do have a little backup detail. So let me enlarge this just a little. All righty. So as Carol indicated, we have been talking for a little bit now about just the district's ongoing borrowing needs and plans. As most of you are familiar, we have a structure in place where the district borrows working cash every 3 years. We call it your rolling working cash. You borrow $3 million for 3 years, and then you do it again. And you use it for ongoing expenditures, many of which are associated with your technology needs. Your borrowing capacity outside of the sales tax right now, everything we're going to talk about right now relates to your borrowing capacity that is on the district's levy, on your tax levy. Your levied bond payments are limited by tax caps. PTEL also limits your non-voted borrowing capacity by a limit that's called your debt service extension base. So your rolling working cash, any health life safety bonds, any other working cash that we do always has to fit within your debt service extension base. Anything that's voter approved is outside of your debt service extension base. So the voted bonds that you had in place for a long time just rolled off a year or two ago. And the tax rate fell. I'd have to go back and look at the history on that. So you gave back that reduction to the taxpayers due to those bonds being paid off. So now we're just working within the debt service extension base limitation. So Carol's question was, how much could we borrow to fund the Thomas Paine project that you're just beginning to talk about? And then what are the options also for Wiley? So the analysis we did was to take your $3 million working cash, continue to assume that you do that every 3 years as you have been. The current model would have you doing the next rolling working cash no later than a year from now. But basically the window for that next working cash opens up March 1, so a month from now, and can be done anytime before the end of February 2022. So basically you're walking into that window for the next rolling working cash issue. And then we evaluated how much room you had in your debt service extension base for other borrowing. And what that produces is a borrowing amount of approximately $11 million, $3 million for your planned rolling working cash, and approximately $8 million that you could apply toward Thomas Paine. That amount is subject to change. There's probably some additional borrowing capacity in the Thomas Paine number, depending on final interest rates. As you can see down here in this graph, this is interest rates over the last 5 years, and we are over at the far right-hand side of that scale. These are tax-exempt municipal bond rates. So you can see that we are at essentially a 5-year low right now. And if I carried this graph out 20 years, you would see we are essentially at a 20-year low. The interest rates are exceedingly low right now. So depending on the timing of when you all decide to move forward, there is potentially some additional borrowing capacity available. I think the $8 million amount for Thomas Paine is a conservative estimate, I guess would be the takeaway message for you all. Then I would also like to point out, you do have some borrowing capacity on your sales tax that could be used for Wiley. Right now, I would estimate that's around $10 million. And you can really pursue that anytime you want. There's no set time frame on that. So just keep that in your hip pocket as your funding mechanism when you're ready for that. But as far as Thomas Paine goes, I think you are at an opportune time to take advantage of the current low interest rates. There are some potential refinancing opportunities that we would roll in with this as well for both the 2011 and 2012 outstanding bonds to produce some savings and to make the cash flow work on the Thomas Paine project. It allows us to do a little debt restructuring at the same time. So you would be able to take advantage of some economies of scale by essentially borrowing for 3 different purposes. Some bond refinancing for interest cost savings and to do some restructuring to make room for the Thomas Paine bonds. It would allow you to fund your working cash fund bonds, the rolling $3 million that you need for your ongoing technology expenditures, and the approximately $8 million for the Thomas Paine project. And to the extent we combine all of those together, as we're proposing at this point, you do essentially achieve economies of scale because there are certain fixed costs associated with a bond issue. Some of the largest costs are in your legal fees and in a bond credit rating from Standard & Poor's. And to the extent we roll those together, we do essentially get a bulk discount, as it were. So let me just show you the numbers here on this spreadsheet for those of you that are data driven. So these are your outstanding bonds here. I really just want to show you over here. So here's your levy. You can see your levy doesn't change at all. It looks like it's increasing to 40 cents. But that's really just because we're holding your EAV literally flat. We're solving for a level bond payment equal to your debt service extension base. You'll see this levy column drops down to 25 cents out here. That's because in this first year where it drops, that's where you would do your next rolling working cash bond. Okay, so these are the rolling working cash bond payments that we've modeled in. So we do that. The next one would be 3 years from the one we're proposing we would do now. Hold on a second. I got to move your little pictures. There we go. So we have levy here. Here's the rolling working cash that we've built in. So here you can see in this column, the peach column, you can see the tax rate just holds flat at that 40-cent rate because essentially we're holding the bond payment flat. The bond payment is flat at your debt service extension base, which is what DSEB stands for, at $2,793,807. That's your current debt service extension base. DSEB does grow with the consumer price index. So over time, every year this number goes up. But we haven't modeled growth into it. So you will get a little breathing room in that number over time. But this model just assumes flat DSEB, flat EAV, and is very conservative. So this funds the $3 million of working cash and the $8 million for Thomas Paine, and then the ongoing rolling working cash right here. But it is essentially using up your debt service extension base for the next, let's see, we're showing final repayment.
Hey, Ann, can you make your screen a little bigger, like to maximize?
Absolutely.
I was going to say, I could tell you were trying to see it better. There we go. Is that better?
It is hard to see, I know. So we're using up the working cash borrowing capacity. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get this over here. Going all the way out to fiscal year 38. So it's about a 17-year usage of the district's borrowing capacity on the levy, other than the rolling working cash. You will continue to be able to do that every 3 years. But otherwise, the other remaining borrowing capacity for the district will come from the sales tax revenue. As I said, there's approximately $10 million of borrowing capacity there that you could use for Wiley, or obviously anytime you want to vote, you can do so. But as far as working within your current borrowing options, those would be the parameters you would be living under.
And so basically it's extending our, from 2030 to 2039. It's basically extending our use of our debt limit for another 9 years.
It is extending you, let's see, your current, sorry, I'm having trouble seeing this. Okay, your current bonds end here
2030.
In 2032, fiscal 2032. And this would take you to fiscal 2038.
6 more years.
So it's extending you 6 more years, John.
Okay.
So what was the rate we were paying for the 2011 bonds?
Let's see, I have that in here for you. All right, your 2011 bonds are right here. They're outstanding at 325 to a 375. And the 2012 bonds are outstanding at just a flat 3.
That's a huge difference in the amount of interest we'd be paying.
There's definitely savings there, no doubt.
Well, I personally feel like a 6-year extension of the debt repayment is a small price to pay for the amount of savings. I mean, this would be more tax money going to buildings as opposed to going to pay interest overall. So this sounds like a great idea to me.
I would agree. huge savings like we probably have never seen.
Well, I won't say that. You all have achieved some pretty amazing savings in years past. The savings here won't be as great as we sometimes would like because these are actually relatively short repayment terms. So if you think about your mortgage, if you only had a 3-year mortgage, even if you cut your rate in half, the savings just aren't the same as it would be if you had a 20-year mortgage, right? So we will have savings. And it will get absorbed into funding Thomas Paine. But it won't be commensurate with the savings we've been able to show you guys in the past. Right now, the savings I would estimate are around $200,000 based on current market conditions. But the bonds are relatively small. You'll see this one, the 11s are outstanding in about 2.6 million and about 2.5 million on the 12s. They're relatively small, and the relatively short is really the big difference.
So I
But that's,
think, I was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say, just to summarize, I think what we would propose tonight is that if the board is in favor of this, that we would move forward in the next few months to try to get this package together and get the resolutions prepared and move forward with doing this. There's no risk involved because as you see, we're only going to get $8 million is the max amount we can get is going to be, you'll see shortly here, we're going to at least use that much for Thomas Paine. So I don't think there's any risk involved. We're going to take advantage of the savings and if we can do that here in the next few months, we probably want to take advantage of that. So.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that we found a way to move forward with Thomas Paine, but also very much appreciate the fact that we're not using our last available dollar. I think that would be very unwise. Number one, it delays Wiley into the distant future instead of into a reasonable amount of future. And we're also finding ourselves, we've spent a great deal of effort in the last 20 years to try to move ourselves to as much using current dollars to do routine maintenance as opposed to routine maintenance being deferred until it all adds up to enough to go out and do one of these financings. And that put us behind the 8 ball that we had a big hole to dig ourselves out of. And I don't want to see us get ourselves back into that same kind of fix. So I understand the reservation of not using any of the sales tax borrowing capacity at this point in time. And I think we'll follow that in the next discussion that this would establish a firm budget maximum for the Thomas Paine project. And it's going to cause us to exercise a considerable amount of discipline in how we approach the Thomas Paine project. We're going to have to be very careful that we don't hamstring ourselves too much with that project. We all know that when we laid out original plans, and admittedly it's a few years ago and prices change over years, but we thought we were going to be less than $10 million on both Yankee Ridge and Thomas Paine. And we ended up at, 13 million at Yankee Ridge. And now we're talking about potentially as much as 14 million at Thomas Paine. So you add the difference between the 8 million that we thought it was going to cost and what it really cost, and there's the Wiley project between the two. So we need to be careful.
Any other board
Understood.
questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ann.
I was just gonna say, this is probably a 90-day time frame to get the bonds done. So you guys can direct me when you're ready to start the ball moving, but that's probably the time frame we're looking at. And when we do move in that direction, you'll see if you choose to move forward with this full plan, you would see us authorize more than the 8 million that we're discussing here for Thomas Paine, just to allow for the possibility of better final results from interest rates and market conditions. So if we can, we'll do a little better than what I'm showing you here. But I think, as I've said, this is conservative modeling for your purposes tonight.
Yeah, and that's good because we have a campus land use plan for the middle school, high school complex. We have some significant outside the building, some significant external outside the building safety concerns that need to be addressed. We have some building issues that are still left to be addressed at the high school and the middle school. We no doubt are living on borrowed time, continuing to live in this administrative quarters where we already know that the next time the roof leaks, we might potentially be, on the hook for 7 figures, maybe even more, involved in just trying to keep the rain from coming inside the offices here. So we've got some significant issues that are facing the district besides Thomas Paine, which is why, just more reasons why we have to exercise some significant discipline here. Because the one thing we don't want to do is set ourselves up to where we have to access the sales tax financing sources and basically leave ourselves with no options whatsoever should any emergencies arise. But indeed, it's a good time to refinance. Everybody's been refinancing their own houses. Any mortgages more than 2 years old is probably, you've probably been talking to your banker about reworking it. Just for the exact reason that we're talking about here, that it's a good time. If there's a good time to borrow, this is a good time to borrow because of the rates being so low.
And John, you caught us all kind of looking at each other because I know Randy's in the Zoom, he's not here. But you see that big spot on the ceiling there? Hopefully that doesn't drip over Carol's head. We just found out today, we'll be sharing something with you guys, that we have another leak in our roof. And unfortunately, our roofers will not come and fix it because they have deemed the roof too dangerous for them to walk on. So Randy is exploring other options. Our people, our facilities people are trying to piecemeal whatever they can do. At this point, that particular spot, I believe, Randy's here, he can share more, but I know that's not what we're here to talk about, but when you said roof, John, it was just kind of prophetic. Because
I'm very familiar with the fact that this building is about ready to fall down around us.
Well,
and we have, you never want the administrative quarters that doesn't serve children directly. But when the building is about ready to fall down around us, we've deferred action on our administrative quarters for probably 15 years. And after it's been at least 15 years that we've been told that the roof up on top is dangerous. And so when the roof goes, the rest of the building goes pretty quickly.
Well, we're at that point because now Randy is looking at other options because the roofers will not go on our roof. We were informed of that.
Yeah, we were told 2 years ago that they were done going on the roof.
Okay. Any more questions?
I guess our architect is listening carefully.
He's
so,
listening.
the message will be delivered again during this next presentation.
So am I safe to say that the board is wanting, I see lots of nods around the table. I don't know if there's a vote necessary.
Can we
but
do a straw poll at
Yes.
this point, or do we have to vote? Because if we have to vote, it has to be
I
2
think
weeks
it's
from now.
straw because it's basically directing me just to go forward. I mean, we're going to bring back resolutions before there would be any action needed. So I think as long as,
Yes, please.
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. This is Peggy, yes.
Yes.
I think that's a good straw poll.
Okay, thank you. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Carol and Ann.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good seeing you again.
Good to see you guys too. I'll see you in person before all this is over.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, next item up is 10.3, the Thomas Paine renovation update, segueing
So-
nicely into that.
So nice segue into that. So I know as Riley is turning his camera on and getting everything that he needs ready to share, perfect. We wanted to, as Carol mentioned, we've been having a lot of conversations about Thomas Paine. We did pause the project in the middle of, as the pandemic got worse. We basically did all of our design development, all of our programming work with the team via Zoom. We started working with them right around the time the pandemic hit. They were very committed. We had a great team from Thomas Paine, but we missed out on a lot of those opportunities that we like to really take in person to the building. So we feel like having this discussion now is going to help us in the long run. Riley will talk about that a little bit when he talks about the timeline. But funding wise, we've talked about our pay as we go money, which is what we were really putting forward to pay for Thomas Paine. We've seen some big hits there because of COVID as well. Just people not going out and shopping, and our facility sales tax funds saw the brunt of that. So that was another reason why we paused the project. But this is a good time based on Carol's been having a lot of conversations with Ann. So we thought it was a really good time to bring Ann here. So you heard the budgeting part of the conversation. Now we want to share with you the reboot, basically how we're going to get Thomas Paine back online. We've had parents, some PTA questions. So this is a good time for the Thomas Paine community who might be watching and listening to hear this. And then we will, of course, hopefully, as our positivity rates and other things continue to move in a positive direction, hopefully be able to go back to the Thomas Paine stakeholders in a different way besides Zoom to share with them a little more information about the project. So I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Riley, who is going to share our timeline. John has already talked a little bit about how our budget has changed a little bit because of the construction costs and things like that related to COVID. So Riley, you ready?
I'm ready. Hello, everybody.
All righty. Hi, right. Okay.
Good to see everybody. I'm sorry my video isn't working tonight. I'm technically challenged for some reason tonight, but my screen has been shared. Is it up and running?
Yes.
Okay, so we stopped Thomas Paine project basically in September. We had finished programming and concept planning, I think by late August, and then COVID hit in a major way, and due to the financial uncertainty that brought along, obviously the project was put on a hold. So I think tonight I'm just going to review where we were then, and then and talk about a potential timeline for moving forward when the board makes that decision. So I think all the faces are familiar on the board still to me. And I think you will all recall that after much discussion, consensus was built on option 2 revised for this Thomas Paine expansion renovation. You'll remember we explored a number of plan alternatives, and we adjusted the program actually during the course of time to add a kindergarten and first grade classroom, which expanded the program a little bit. It went from the 68,840 you see on the screen to the 68, almost 500 square feet program. But this was ultimately the scheme selected. And just refreshing memory again, blue is new construction, red is major renovation of the existing building, green is more moderate renovation, and the yellow is basically corridors that tie the all of the new and old areas together. So this was the selected scheme to be advanced in the next phase of the work. By the same token, we were working on the proposed site development to go along with that building scheme. And you will remember a number of things evolved over time, but we landed here on the option 2 revised site development scheme. And it rearranged the parking and the circulation on the west side of the building. A dedicated bus queuing area is now present, and the staff and visitor parking has been moved closer to the building, and the circulation should work much better, and it reduces, this scheme reduced conflict between parent drop off and exiting and the staff entering and parking. The green area in the lower left corner of the image, that's the old parking that could be restored to green area when we redo the parking on the west side. A couple of other features that we developed, and that was the service drive on the east side of the primary wing, comes in off Florida, has some parking associated with it, and that's the service drive for loading, unloading, garbage, and probably parking for some staff or maybe janitorial staff. The new expansion to the east and to the north causes us to redevelop the primary and the intermediate playgrounds a little bit. The memorial walkway on the east side, due to the expansion to the east, is modified and a little bit. And I think finally, from a site standpoint, we moved the sensory garden to the outside. In this scheme, it's shown to the west of staff parking, but I think late discussions said it would probably be better off located to on the south end of the intermediate wing. There were a number of reasons that we arrived at concept option 2 revised. You remember we all thought it was the most compact layout. It minimized the travel distances. It allowed the primary and the intermediate classes to move separately and without conflict through the building. That is, from their classroom areas to the multipurpose room, cafeteria, to the gym. They all sort of have separate pathways to and from those shared areas. We were able to integrate the SPED classrooms well with each, with primary and intermediate as well. And the K2 and the 3-5 playgrounds only required improvements. That statement, I think, needs to be modified a little bit. I think the intermediate playground is pretty much of a relocation. The K2 is more of a modification. This scheme we thought might be good for developing some ad alternate bids or phasing if the case presented itself. In other words, if in fact we don't have the budget for this project, it would be easily phased, and that would be our method by which we could cost control over time. The only real cons to this scheme were that to get a nice, compact, well-executed, functionally scheme like this, it took a little more space. So we have a little more new construction, and as well, we ended up with a little more major renovation. But I think it was generally agreed by all that the additional cost that the additional space generated was more than outweighed by the positives of the scheme. just an update on the budget. When we left off in August, September, we had a $13,120,000 total project budget. Since then, it has crept up to $13,544,000. The primary reasons being we had the opportunity to work with a site civil engineer and develop a little more exacting cost estimate on the site development costs, which went up some. And then we factored in some cost escalation due to the delay, construction cost escalation. Remember, everyone, that this is a very preliminary square foot based, percentage based cost estimate, and that we'll know, I think we'll have a more reliable estimate at the end of the next schematic design phase, where we've had the chance to go back and talk to all the users, staff, admin, and the board again, to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of space, that it's configured in the right way, and the site development is accurate. So that estimate, I think, will tell us more where we are. That's probably a couple months out. Somebody mentioned earlier the cost at Yankee Ridge. The actual cost at Yankee Ridge was $11,500,000 all in at that time. So we're a couple million over that projected as we sit here today. With respect to the timeline, this was the original timeline on Thomas Paine, which was modeled off the Yankee Ridge timeline, which essentially is start as quickly as possible in a springtime, utilize the spring, the first summer, the following school year, and the following summer to complete a project of this complexity. I would mention Yankee Ridge ran a little long because it got started a little late in the spring. Let's see here, where was I? At the end of August, when we completed the programming and concept planning, we were about to attempt this schedule, which abbreviated both the design phase and the bidding phase, and probably would have set us up for failure during the construction phase. So thankfully, we actually didn't get going. I guess that was the one advantage to COVID, is we didn't try to take on a schedule that I looking back on don't think is realistic. So finally, now we're proposing a timeline for the Thomas Paine project. It suggests that we could get restarted in March of this year. And what this project does is it restores adequate time for both the design and bidding phases. And we actually get bids in prior to the holidays this year, which would set us up for an early start next year, and give us a chance of actually doing the spring, summer, school year, summer, and finishing up in that last fall, or in July of the second summer, so that we could truly reoccupy the building properly prior to the fall semester. So again, we completed the programming concept planning phase in August of 2020, and we've been delayed until now. So design phases would run from March through September of this year, 7 months approximately. We would then issue, receive, analyze bids, and award contracts prior to the end of this year, giving 3 months for that duration. And then having awarded a construction contract by the end of this year, it would allow us to get a jump start on project submittals and the contractor mobilization. So we would really start the project right at the beginning of January, which gives us a couple of months of effort before ground probably could be broken, weather permitting. And then we follow through with that same schedule. This is just a calendar graphic illustration of the schedule that you just saw. Red is design, blue is bidding contract award, and green is the construction phase. So I know that was fast, but what discussion would we like to have?
Board members, you have questions?
Well, this is John. I'm sure you heard the discussion about the money, and so
yeah,
we've been through enough of these projects to know that the normal practice is the normal occurrence is that there's creeping up the needs, creeping up therefore the cost, and so I think for Thomas Paine community is my community, and so it difficult for me to say this, but I think this is one time where we need to be very careful as we move forward so that we don't get this to the point where because of the budget we have to delay it some more to allow more time for sales tax dollars to accumulate or for us to pay down our existing debt a little bit more so that we have more space for new finance. So that I think needs to be made clear. Paul and I are part of the facilities committee, so we had a chance to look at this and discuss it. I do want to say that I think that the schematic design is presented to us tonight. Is that the proper terminology? Schematic design is really a good one, I know we need to go through the final design process and bring in some input from some additional input from the Thomas Paine community, meaning parents as well as staff. I think we can be very proud of this work if we can move it along pretty quick and get the job done, and make a real creditable improvement to the school.
This is Peggy. I support what John said. Also, I mean, it seems like we're still a good year and a half off from the actual construction phase, which seems to me will likely result in further increases in the construction costs. I mean, this is just the way it is because it's still a ways off. And so one of the reasons we like this particular version was because of the alternate options that were before us. So I'd like us to, make a point of exploring those early on. As I remember them, some of the alternate options that we could kind of pull out for now, if our total cost was over what we could afford, and it seems that is likely to be the case, are the 2 new classrooms or the new K1 classroom that we talked about kind of toward the end, to hold off on those. And there may be other alternate bids that we kind of threw out when we were talking about this last year. Those are just the 2 I wrote down. So I would like to be sure that we explored those options and what those savings would be, so that is part of the discussion from the get-go, acknowledging that we are likely exceeding the amount of money we have to spend on this project. So we don't shortchange future projects.
Peggy, I think those are some real good points and along the lines of maybe looking at it in a different, from a different viewpoint. Riley, I'm sure that part of this is going to be window replacement at the existing building. And did we, by virtue of perhaps doing some window replacements quicker, do we dampen a little bit of that expected increase just because it's a year off before we actually are putting the majority of the project under construction?
John, I think you're asking me if we did the window replacement project ahead of the main project, would that?
Similar to what we did at
Yeah.
Yankee Ridge.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility, and it's a significant amount of money. I don't remember exactly what the Yankee Ridge project was, but I think it was in the $300,000 range, and I would expect Thomas Paine to be at least that. And that money is included in our preliminary estimate of the 13.5.
If those windows are going to be 15%, I know the flip side of this is that because of COVID and because of the push in other parts of the country, not so much here, but other parts of the country to build a lot more housing, that construction suppliers are having a hard time keeping up with demand. Even in this community, because of the hail damage, some people are still waiting on, me included, waiting on some things that we're waiting on the manufacturer to be able to just produce the items.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe now's not a good time to push forward a window project, or any other items that can be. We talk about phasing. We oftentimes talk about phasing as something to push things out in the future. And I'm just wondering if there's some things that can be done next summer, summer of 21, that would save on some of that inflationary, that natural inflationary aspects that take place when you delay construction. And maybe it's immaterial and we should drop the discussion.
Well, no, I think it's material, and I think the window replacement is a good example of that. I haven't taken the time to look for other items along those lines, but you would be potentially buying the windows or whatever component of the work we decide to do early. You'd be buying it at today's dollars rather than the escalated dollars. On the other hand, as you start breaking off pieces of the project, doing them separately, you lose potentially some economy of scale of a large project.
Sure. That's kind of what I was asking. How that would balance out. It might be better just to do it all at once.
And I guess another issue is thinking about the disruption that the construction causes ongoing operations at the school. And this particular project, like Yankee Ridge, is a challenge from that standpoint because it's so long and so invasive. So to start doing things piecemeal and over a longer period of time, I think we probably want to think about that a little bit as well.
Sure.
And when you think about trying to control the budget, I think everybody's clear on this, but I'll just say it out loud. In my mind, phasing is where you defer a piece of the project into the future. The add alternate bid approach is where you have a chance of, with good bids, of still being able to do it, or, with attractive bids. Some of the alternate bid items that we talked about, Peggy mentioned one, and that was the classrooms. One thing I mentioned a while ago, and this is, none of it is good, deferring any of it isn't good, but we could take a big chunk out of the site development work, particularly on the west side, by just living with our existing parking circulation scheme as it is today. Not advisable, nobody wants it, but again, if we have a challenged budget, we have to make some big decisions. And those, we have to lose space, we have to lose large chunks of site development to address budget concerns. Early in this project is the time to do that. So if we need scope reductions, we should be talking about them through this first schematic design phase that's coming up very seriously.
In my opinion, that depends on the budget.
Yeah, well.
And so a ballpark cost of what when you talk about phasing, you probably identified the easiest piece to say that we're going to rebuild the school and 2 years later, we'll do the west front. That's the easiest spot, because that can be done with minimal impact to the operations of the school.
That's true.
Other board members have questions or comments?
I think one of the bottom lines here is, if we're going to move forward with this, I'm not saying we are going to move forward with this. So speed is of the essence, so that we don't set ourselves up to lose another year.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'm anxious to get started again with Riley. So, we've taken questions from the Thomas Paine community, some parents, the principal is anxious and ready to go. So I think this updated project timeline is realistic, and that we could pull together the stakeholders, and I can get together with Riley and we could get back on track for this March SD phase of the project with the board's go ahead for us to do that. While at the same time, Carol can be working with Ann on the financial pieces that we talked about tonight.
Well, if you're doing a straw poll to see who wants to move forward, we need to move this forward and get going.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I agree too. I think we need to move forward.
Agree. I support that as well.
I agree as well.
Okay. All right, Riley. So I think we've been given our marching orders. So I'll be getting together with you, and we'll get together and start talking SD.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Riley.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome. See you, everybody.
Bye, Riley. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, moving forward for our next item, we have our calendar committee update from Kim Norton, who is going to talk us through the next proposed school year.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I have the calendar update that contains 2 recommendations that were recommended by the calendar committee. And that committee was comprised of parents, board member, teachers, building administrators, central office, and support staff. We had a total of 17 members. We had Sharon Foley, parent, and Jackie Douglas, parent, and Ruth Ann Fisher, board member. And then teachers, Martha Cherukian, Minette Kretz, Carla Schroeder, Alicia Trezice, Emily Carter, and Amani Claus. And building administrators, Joe Weemount, Travis Corson, Steve Waller, and Tom Majors. And then central office staff was myself, Lexus McMillan, my admin assistant, Hannah Holbrook, our systems data processor, and Yvonne Smith, PD director, and we had Cedric Stratton, support staff. Prior to our first meeting, in between meetings, they received information ahead of time. So we surveyed the committee before we began, just to kind of see what their desires were and anything that they wanted to change from our current calendar. And then we also shared the ISD requirements and community calendar examples. At the first meeting, we established the guidelines and we reviewed the committee survey results. Between meetings, we drafted the sample calendars from those guidelines. At meeting 2, we considered the drafts and we moved one forward for the 2 years. And after the second meeting, we distributed a calendar survey to staff and students that you will soon see the results from. And at our last meeting, we considered all feedback to arrive where we are today with these 2 final drafts. And so looking at the state guidelines, it remains the same as the last time the calendars were reviewed. We're still at 176 necessary student days of attendance, 4 institute days. Now the 5 weather days, we will no longer need those. Do we intend to use those because of our e-learning plan? However, with talking with our regional superintendent, you'll see it still noted on the draft. He recommended that we kept it noted there, but we don't intend to use those days for emergencies or inclement weather because we'll have the e-learning day. And then we also wanted to make sure that we have a continuity of instruction and consider any community events. We also looked at area calendars with the University of Illinois and then Unit 4 with their spring break so that we were aligned with both of those. And then we considered all the federal holidays as well. Additional considerations were the UHS graduation and homecoming dates so that we didn't have any conflicts. And with both of our proposed calendars for both years, we will end before Memorial Day. And then we want to ease into the school year with the Teacher Institute days. And so with that, we originally were starting at August 16th, both years, and that's for insurance purposes too, that we start at that time. We consider childcare with our after-school childcare center, and then also looked at the possibilities of adding other religious holidays to the fall break, the fall holiday. Some of the feedback that we received, and that was through the discussion of the committee, but then also looking at the surveys, was returning to parent-teacher conferences after the first quarter and observing more religious holidays and considering the virtual options for parent-teacher conferences. So even though we are still doing student-led conferences, we would have that virtual option for our families because we did see that our conferences are better attended by having that as another option. The committee proposed to split conferences possibly into 3 days, to do 2 hours on a Tuesday night, 2 hours on a Thursday, and then the Friday morning. However, when we surveyed our staff, that was not a popular option, and they wanted to continue with the same days that we have now, with the Thursday evening and Friday morning. And again, we were able to align our spring break with the University of Illinois, and the spring break or the fall holiday with U4 on 1 year on the 2022. So looking at the student survey results, and this was just for secondary students, we did get 109 responses. And so our students, 53.2% wanted to return to the conferences following the first quarter, where 49.5% wanted to keep them as they are now. So we asked students which method works best for you to share information on your learning, and 56.1% said through discussion, by sharing what is learned, and 41.1% shared through work samples or going over their portfolio, and then 2.8% selected both options. Some of the student responses were overall like the student-led, and that they like the opportunity to have 2 conferences. Only one student out of the 109 shared that they do not prefer the student-led conferences. And with the staff, and I was really pleased, we got a really quick turnaround and 224 responses, and 60.8% of staff want to return after the first quarter of conferences, and 39.2% to keep them as they are now. For conferences that they prefer having that virtual ability to be able to do them virtual or in person, but 73% want to keep them, as I mentioned, on the Thursday from 4 to 8 and Friday 8 to 11. And again, we're aligned with spring breaks for the university. And then we also had some written comments just to keep parent-teacher conference days as we have them now. Okay, any questions? So overall, you'll see that we'll start 2021, August 16th, and we would conclude by May 25th. And in 2022, we would start August 16th and conclude by May 26th. And again, we'd have the major changes. We're having conferences after the first quarter, and we'll continue with the student-led conferences. On the 2021 calendar, the fall holiday will be October 11th. And on the 2022 calendar, the fall holiday would be September 26th. Was really proud of the committee. We had a lot of good dialogue throughout. And there were some conflicts with the music program. They typically have that on Columbus Day or the Indigenous holiday on October 11th. So the committee we compromised and kind of shared that we're 1 year. We had it October 11th, and then the following year, September 26th.
So what's the magic on September 26th? Because that's awful early in the school year to have a break. I mean,
Right, so we're observing Rosh Hashanah holiday,
Okay.
and then Unit 4 does as well.
Gotcha. Thank you. I know this is sometimes controversial, and I'm glad I've never served on the committee. Ruth Ann, I know it's one of your strengths. So,
Well, I love being on a calendar committee, and the one thing that I've always driven home, I missed one. I was a little slow getting started on another, doing the Zoom thing, but my pet peeve, of course, is always pushing that we have as few 4-day weeks as possible. Has sort of been my mantra for many, many, many years on this. This works out nicely. We were talking about, the compromise on where that original fall holiday sat, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to freak out. But I was glad to see that, and that was something that's actually been changed since we had our Zoom meeting this last Tuesday. So I'm very happy to know that the committee worked on that to bring to us tonight.
Now, there were a lot of different perspectives, some awkward pause at times, but everybody came together. It was a great committee.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It has to be that way. We can't just go in and rubber stamp everything every time. We need to have that input. We've got to know from parents. We have to know from our students what's fit well with their years as well, regardless of their ages. It's just calendar is crazy. Oh, and we are matching up more with not just the university, but also with Champagne's calendar in many places.
In some components, not all.
Yeah, in some places. Yeah. So this has really been shaking the trees and letting everything fall out and really attack things. I might approve this one this time around. You know how I've been.
You never approved any of mine.
Well,
what, does Kim have like the magic touch?
I think I learned from you, maybe some of your tips.
Well, just because you're on a committee doesn't mean that you're always going to rubber stamp everything too. And being a board member, you're not always going to rubber
Might
stamp
want to check and see if
everything.
lightning has struck the building.
I know. We don't want our roof
That
to
might
fall in.
help.
One thing I was going to add, and Kim may have said this and I missed it, but we've always followed that staff development model where the elementary students don't attend on that full day. That's been a waiver we've had from ISB for many, many years. So we're continuing that. I think our staff appreciate it. Our parents are kind of used to it now. It's a good day for middle school and high school too to get some PD in. So you may have said that, Kim, and I missed it, but I just wanted to highlight that for teachers that might be watching, that is not something that we're going to change. Other questions, comments?
I'm looking, we did the committee did a real good job on evening out attendance days in all the quarters. From basically when flipping from one page to the next, you can see the backside.
And special thanks to Nanette on that. She was wonderful. She really helped us check just to make sure everything was aligned really well with that.
Exactly. And that's part of the thing. I mean, once you start putting things down on paper, you go, oh, this looks great. Oh, now count your days, and then it's like, oh, shoot, we got some shuffling to do type of thing. That this is very even for both of the next 2 school years. And that's really good.
Well, I want to thank Kim for her leadership and for the committee for their hard work. It's not easy to do this via Zoom, and they've had several meetings right after, they finish with students and they go right into these meetings and they're in multiple hours Zooms doing this. So I just want to thank the committee and all the parents and everybody who represented. So great work.
So this will be on our next agenda
Next
for action.
agenda for action.
Thank
This is
you.
the First read. Yep. So if you have questions between now and February 16th, send them to Kim Clay and she can, or Ruthann, and we can ask the committee.
I have one right off the bat. Could you remind me, I heard mention of homecoming, and let's knock wood that we have a proper homecoming this year, but where does that fit into this and how does it? I mean,
Mr. Waller has not set the actual date, but when we looked at everything, the couple that he was leaning towards does not conflict with anything. He was on the committee and we made sure that his voice was heard.
Yeah.
On that.
And also likewise, thank you for considering Rosh Hashanah. I know we've had parents who've asked year after year when we convene our committees to please consider that. And so I'm really grateful that we were able to work it in. Are there any other religious holidays that people have mentioned or that we wanted to give accommodation for? I mean, not saying we absolutely have to use weather days, but you know, if people have made a mention, I want to be equitable about it and see that we're listening to the voices. So what feedback did you get on that?
I didn't get any on any other holidays at this
Okay.
time, but yeah, I was glad that we were able to compromise and work that out just between the two. It was, and we'll have to look to second year if there may be a conflict with music, but we would maybe have students out on that day. That that's something we would work through with subs.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just still trying to wrap my head around the idea that we don't have snow days anymore. I mean, yesterday was a case in point. I thought, oh, in years past, you would have been woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning with the parents and other people calling up to say, what's going on? So we have to ease ourselves into that. But I guess with having, these winter weather days or emergency days, we'd use them judiciously, but is there any way that how we would anticipate using them? What would they be used for? And what instances will we even think of using them?
Well, I don't think we have to. I think the regional superintendent just wants us to keep them as placeholders for now.
It is for some reason, and I've checked with them twice to make sure because the e-learning days are approved. But just for whatever reason, we'll keep it on here.
I would say we can't anticipate everything. Maybe we have an ice storm and all the power gets knocked out to the city.
Yeah.
We can't do any e-learning day if we don't have the power.
Yeah.
So that may be a day where we have to take a weather day.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
True.
oh no, it could be,
Yeah. Okay. I didn't have any other questions. Thank you very much for all your hard work on this. And boy, it's exciting to think that far ahead that, just the thought of actually being back in the buildings to do anything at all is kind of refreshing. But did any other board members have questions right off the bat, or do you want to wait until we talk about this next time? Okay. Cool. Okay. Great. Well, thank you again. Okay, and our last item on the study topics is our COVID-19 update.
okay. And I promised, I promised myself I was not gonna have a very long COVID update since you guys have had you've had long COVID updates. So I am setting a timer for myself. All right. So I just want to publicly share a little bit about what we're doing with vaccines. So we're super excited to be partnering with CU Public Health to be able to offer our own vaccine clinic, our own vaccination clinic here for our staff. They approached Dr. Zola and I from Unit 4. We'd expressed interest in being able to do something. We felt like we have 8 nurses here in our district. They have twice that number over in Champaign, and we felt we had the capacity to be able to get our staff through faster. And also, it's a service to our county because our people who come through and get vaccines with us, that is 500 or 600 less people that now they have to go through the community site. So very quickly, in just several meetings in between last week and just over a couple days, we worked out a plan, and we're very happy that we will be offering vaccines to, right now we have 585 of our staff members who signed up, who have pre-registered, I should say, and 500 who have signed up. So we opened the vaccines in stages. So one of the asks from CUPHD was that we offered the vaccines first to people who are working in person. So as you know, we've said this many times that we do have a large number of our staff who are working remotely. And so I think Champaign Public Health Department wanted us to make sure that we prioritize vaccines for those people who are coming in direct contact with students. So we kind of put people in groups. So we had a group 1, staff members who are working in person who are 65 and older and have high risk medical conditions. They were offered the sign up link first. And then our group 2 were all of the staff, which was a very large group of people who are working regularly every day with students. And that included not just teachers, Our initial conversations were more so about those instructional people, but then when we sat down at the table with CPHD, we said, hey, we've got clerical people and custodians and principals who are with students literally every day, well, except Wednesdays, but those people are in very much as close interaction with students as teachers and TAs are. So we had a great conversation with them and they said, yes, we agree with you. You should be offering vaccines to those people as well. So that was our group 2. Our group 3, our central office. I know I'm in buildings quite a bit. John, all of us in this room are out and about. And our facilities and maintenance people and food service. I should have said bus drivers and bus monitors were included in the second group in regard to people who are in close contact with students. And today we were able to share the link to the staff that are working remotely. So we did kind of phase it out in a prioritized way. Most of the reason, most of the rationale by doing that is we did not know until the day they deliver our doses, how many doses we would actually get. So they dropped off our vaccines yesterday. We have them under lock and key at the high school right now. And so that was one reason why we had to kind of limit. We couldn't just open it up to the district and say, okay, everyone sign up. And then they only give us, 300 doses and we have 500 people signed up. So I think we did in a very organized, kind of methodical way that worked out. I know our group 4 people were on pins and needles, emailing me saying, when is the link coming? And so now everyone has had access. We're going to work through some of our substitutes. I think they're the last group. So our substitutes who are working in person have been given access, and now we're going to work with our subs who want to come back and work with students, but aren't going to be able to come back until they're vaccinated. I think that will be the last group of people that we'll work through. So we start tomorrow. We'll be at Urbana High School in the small gym from 8 to 3. And then Thursday we'll be in the same spot from 12 to 6. So people are signing up. John has been instrumental in helping us create a Google Calendar that has really allowed the process to go very smoothly, very similar to what we're doing with our testing site. So I'm going to give you an update about that here in a second, but we're using a really nice calendar system that we can send out through a Google form, just like we do for our COVID testing. Our staff members are able to go through their email and sign up for a slot. So it worked really well for vaccines. So we are going to be giving the Pfizer vaccine. So we'll be doing the same thing in about 3 weeks and to get our staff back in to get their second dose. So it's very exciting opportunity. I know our UEA leadership, our UEA members, everybody in basically in our community, our school community are really looking forward to this. And I'm hopeful that more of our staff who are working at home, several have emailed me this week and said they're really anxious to get back in the classroom with students, and having the vaccine will make all the difference to them being able to do that. So any questions about? Okay. Oh, and I did just want to give a very short testing update. So as you know, we started drive-through testing. We're in week 2. So last week was our first full week of testing. We only tested for 4 days last week. So in our drive-through, we saw 151 cars, which is not bad for the very first week. Out of that drive-through, we had 149 negative and 2 positive. So we actually, through our rapid test, were able to identify, which is the whole point of doing the surveillance, is to catch those positives and make sure we get those people started in contact tracing and quarantine right away. We also started the symptomatic testing. So we started that when students came back 2 weeks ago. So in the 2 weeks since we started symptomatic testing of students and staff in the building, and this is where we are able to test students with parent permission, we've had 19 negatives and 2 positives. So we've actually had some positives in our building that we've been able to catch through the COVID rapid antigen testing too. So it is doing what it's supposed to do. And right now, when we find out about those positives, Angie and her team, she works right away with the principals. Our systems and protocols have been working because we put those people in quarantine, we start the contact tracing, and we've not seen significant spread because of the 4 positives that we've identified, whether it was in the building or through the drive-through. So, people who have gone through it this week too and last week have, and I'm, not to toot our own horn, but I do think we have a really good system. I mean, we have a lot of committed people that are there. We're using the certified nursing assistants. I think I mentioned that. We have 6 that we hired, and they are amazing. They are there at 7 a.m. Well, 6:45. The first cars roll through at 7 o'clock, and there are always people there at 7 a.m. I went every day last week, and I couldn't believe it. There are people there waiting at 6:55 to have their COVID test. And so Sharon Foley has provided great leadership with that as our testing coordinator, and she's been my right hand with John as well, getting a lot of those systems set up. And we would not be able to do it without our certified nursing assistants. So big shout out to the adult ed program. They have trained some amazing, we have a couple of young people who are Urbana grads. I think I said that, did I say that last time? 3 of our CNAs are recent Urbana High School graduates who are now nursing students at Parkland. And one is a former Urbana graduate from a few years ago. They all work in other settings, either a couple of them work at Carl, 2 work in residential nursing facilities, and 1 is in private home health care. So we're just really thankful to have them, and they're there Monday through Friday, 7 to 10 every day. So we wouldn't be able to do it without them. So I will give you regular updates just to kind of let you know numbers wise what a difference the rapid testing is doing to keep us in school and keep people safe and keep outbreaks from happening. So that is it for me.
Hi, Jennifer. This is Peggy. Good to know the first 2 weeks went so well. Just 2 questions. Well, does this information that you just shared with us now about number of cars that went through, number of positives and negatives, does that appear on the website, the school district's dashboard?
So if yes, so we do, we don't put the number of people who actually drive through. We just put on the dashboard the number of people who test positive, the numbers that we have in quarantine. Now, remember when we talked about the dashboard a long time ago, we don't post every single positive unless it's somehow or another, it was contracted through our school. So like if we have somebody who shows up positive, or we get a phone call that says they're positive, then we don't post those things on our dashboard. We just post the positive cases that are directly related to the school environment. But we have been updating quarantine numbers. So anytime we quarantine somebody because of a close contact in one of our buildings, we do update that on our data dashboard. And Peggy, we have to regularly, basically every day, we have to report to the Illinois Department of Public Health. We have a daily survey summary. So we report one number for all of our tests that we've administered for the day. And then every single test that is done has to be put into the Illinois Department of Public Health Red Cap reporting system. And then every week I have to do a weekly webinar it's a combination of with the State Board of Education people, the Department of Public Health people. So they do a weekly webinar, kind of a check-in with us every week just to make sure everything's going okay.
Great, thank you. And just my second question, has the U of I Shield test started yet at our high school?
Not yet. So John and I have had multiple meetings about that in the last 2 weeks. We were supposed to start the week of February 1st. I'm glad you mentioned that, Peggy. We were supposed to start February 1st, and they pushed that back. So now our start date is next week, February 8th. We have another meeting coming up later this week to finalize the last piece. I think we've got the logistical pieces worked out. We've got all of our routines. I think we know procedurally what we're going to do on our end. Right now, we're just trying to work out some, what would you call it, John? Reporting, processing, results. Yep. Yep. So the result reporting, that's a better way to say it, with the university, because they use a very specific app program with the students. So the reporting piece for us is going to be trickier because we're going to be delivering our samples to the lab kind of late afternoon-ish, like 2:30, 3 o'clock. So in order for us to get our results the next day before the students and staff members walk in the building is a really tight turnaround for the lab. And so we have another meeting scheduled. I think the last piece we need to figure out is the IT component. And then we will be good to go. So hopefully when we meet with them, we're supposed to meet either Wednesday or Thursday of this week. We hope to still be a go for next week. If not, I'm very confident that we will be ready to go the following week.
Great, thank you for coordinating all these different efforts. It's good to have a wealth of resources finally at our disposal.
Yes, yep. Any other questions or?
Okay, just quickly though, are we anticipating that we'll see more since we had 151 and the drive ups? Do you think we're going to see bigger numbers now?
Oh, I think so. I think it was just kind of getting people used to it. I know
Sure.
some people who are going every week routinely, and again, we're not mandating it.
Yeah, no.
So I think once the word spreads and more people hear about it, our numbers for next week will be a little lower because Wednesday is a big day for us. Last Wednesday we were super busy, and it's because we don't have students. Wednesday is our all remote day, so we had a lot of central office people coming through. A lot of our people who don't work with the students, it was a good day for them to come over because they didn't have to work through their schedule of when I'm teaching, when I'm not teaching. It's a good day. So we were very, very busy last Wednesday. This Wednesday, however, we're not doing drive-through testing because we will be doing vaccines instead. And we don't have the personnel to be able to do both at the same time. But yeah, I anticipate that it will pick up. The more people hear about it and the more people see that it is really easy. I had a high school teacher, Mr. Watson, emailed Markel Watson and said he felt like our system was better than going out to Marketplace Mall. I was like, woohoo, that was a big compliment. So, so that was nice to hear. Okay.
So do you hope to eventually hit 100% on the vaccination?
Well, not everyone's pre-registered and signed up. So we have,
Right.
We have 872-ish staff
Yeah, you mentioned
members, and
500
we
and
had
some odd.
585 who signed up. So we'll send out one more call tomorrow afternoon because we will have some open spots on Thursday. So we'll send an email tomorrow to say, last chance, if you want to be part of this opportunity, we need to know. We're not going to be doing this like every week. If someone says, oh, I didn't get to do it this week, can I do it next week? So this is
Okay, it's one
this is
shot.
going to be
Not a shot, but one time. Yeah.
Don't throw away your shot, right? Well, but remember there are community sites that are open. So the iHotel is open for 1B. Carl is running a site at the old dress barn out off of Prospect. And then Public Health is running a site out in Rantoul.
It's off of Market and Neal.
Market and Neal. The dress barn.
You said Prospect.
Yes. So there are three other places, and that's what I've been telling people who email me and say, I can't take the shot this week because I'm on a special medicine, or so I've been kind of saying to people, unfortunately, this is when we're doing it. We're not going to be able to, just kind of give vaccines here and there. We're really trying to do it in a real coordinated effort because, again, we have to turn around and do the same thing in a couple of weeks.
Well, doing almost 600 in one day is going to be.
Well, we have 2
challenge.
days.
2 days,
So
300 a day.
Wednesday from 8 to 3 and Thursday from 12 to 6.
Even 300 a day in those timeframes is.
So we have
aggressive.
8 nurses. We'll have multiple. If you've been out to iHotel, we basically mirrored their system. So we went out, we visited, we took pictures.
Well, the one that Carl has up at the dress barn is it's like a production line. I mean, it's very routine.
Well, we're hoping our
down
system is
pat
going to
as
be
well.
like that. I haven't been to the dress barn, but we did go out to iHotel and So we've set our system up very much like what, you've been out there.
Mhm. Good.
Hey, Jennifer, I did want to add, we did have a small number of staff, our Gerber staff,
Oh.
and some of our Medicaid eligible staff, psychologists, social workers, speech therapists that were able to get under 1A. So some of those have been vaccinated already.
Already done.
Mhm.
So that, yes, that was
Sorry. I
And some
just
people have
wanted-
just been able to get in like at local Walgreens and surrounding
Okay.
towns. So people are getting it done elsewhere as well.
That's a good reminder, Angie, because even people who signed up, we started sharing the link on Friday, and then even, someone emailed and said, hey, I was able to get in at Walgreens, so you can give my appointment to someone else. So I think you're right, people are getting in wherever they can at this point.
That was my follow-up, was that you said earlier before when we were chatting that this would be 3 weeks, or 3 weeks in between
Mhm.
doses, and they have to come back to us. If they got it done with us, they have to
Yes.
come back to us.
Yes, if they got their first dose with us, I have had people ask that question, like, if I got my first dose with public health, can I come get my second dose with you? And that isn't the way it works.
Yeah, even
So
if it's the same
Yeah.
manufacturer, if it's Pfizer or
Yeah.
Moderna or whatever, it doesn't matter. They
It
should still
doesn't matter.
because you've got the records.
Yeah,
And
and it's all tied to lot numbers,
Yeah.
and we give them a vaccination record card. Our nurses will put the date, what they received, the lot number of the Pfizer vaccine that they received, and then we will make sure that they get they get what they're supposed to get for their second dose.
Yeah, the one out by Marketplace, actually, you don't leave until you have your appointment set up, time, date, before you walk out the door
Well, that's good.
for the second shot. And so it's all done all at once like that, so that it's very predictable to the patient
Yeah.
as to when shot number 2 is.
Good. I've had a lot of staff ask about safety, allergic reactions, things of that
Yeah.
nature. So we will have EMTs on site and EpiPens, and there is a mandatory 15-minute waiting period after you get your shot. So we have a section of the gym set off for that. People will be expected to wait the 15 minutes, and there will be EMTs trained staff there to monitor for anybody having a reaction to the vaccine.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you
Okay,
very
you're
much.
welcome.
It's exciting. Any other board questions about COVID? No? Okay, well, that finishes up our study topics for tonight. And in less time than I thought it was going to be, actually. I don't believe we have, do we have a call for future special or executive meetings after this week? All righty, then we'll move into the superintendent's report. Back to you.
Okay, back to me. So I am going to share. John, are you going to share for me, or am I sharing? Okay. Let's see what happens. Okay. All right, that worked. I'm used to driving, so it's been hard for me to give the driving privileges to John.
I'm happy to share some of the work.
All right, so congratulations to Ben Mann. I don't know if I was gonna go to their website, and let me see if I can still do that. Here we go. You don't want to look at Thomas Paine. There we go. So Meg Zucker and Ben Mann were recognized as distinguished alumni. I don't know if you saw this announcement today through the Steve Schools Foundation, but I just wanted to highlight it really quickly. So Meg was a graduate in class of 1987 from Urbana High School. And then Ben was our local business community impact winner. And he's a friend to Central Office here, and a friend to our local business community friend to Urbana School District. And he is one of the co-owners of Buddy's Tavern. They had a really cool video that I'm hoping I can share. I don't know who remembers Ben as a graduate in 1999. I won't show the whole video, but it was really well done. So we'll see if the sound, can you hear?
For me, growing up in
I'm not getting any sound. I don't know if anybody else is.
No, I'm not either.
started, but I'm telling you, that was.
Nah, I don't think it'll work. So I'll send the video, but at least you guys can see it, and it was very well done. So kudos to Kelly Hill and her team for really putting together a great way to kind of honor Ben and his work in the community. So congratulations to Ben and Meg Zucker. Hope that was the video. So I do want to give a sports update. I don't know if this has made it to board members yet, but Mr. Waller and I have been having a lot of discussions around IHSA and athletics for Urbana High School. We have made the decision, along with many of the other schools in the Big 12, that we will not be allowing fans in for home games for the boys and girls basketball games. I know that is really hard for some of our families to hear, but because of the restrictions around only being able to allow 50 people into the gym, and just the amount of contact tracing and the amount of, just what that might open us up to having so many people from the community in and out of the building. So we already, I know Jason knows this because he's worked with Mr. Waller, we have had a camera in the gym now for several months. So we will be able to live stream those games. All parents will get a link. They'll be able to still see the games. Mr. Waller is going to work with families on, I know our seniors have missed a lot, so we are going to try to come up with a way to make sure we honor the seniors. But for safety reasons, we are not going to be having spectators viewing the games for the girls and the boys.
So what about other, like soccer and boys swimming and?
We haven't made that decision yet. So
Still-
right now
still
we're writing.
researching.
Yeah,
Okay.
right now it's because boys and girls are just starting up and they've started practices. They're putting together games. They have to have 7 practices before they can have any games. We already know of a couple of districts nearby us who, if you have a positive case, go hit one of your teams, you're basically not going to have a season because of all the requirements related to quarantining and close contacts. And so anyway, we're trying to do everything that we can to make sure that these young people get to play. And one way that we're going to do that is not have fans, and we will work with families and people who really want to see the games, make sure they can have that live stream option. Winter Guard, as you know, this is a very popular team. They do a fantastic job, and we're really excited. They have won another award here. So congrats to the Winter Guard for their first virtual competition, and they actually won first place. So congratulations to our Winter Guard. They're amazing. So on Monday, February 8th is NAPID. And as you know, for many, many years, our district has been a strong supporter of National African American Parent Involvement Day. So if in the Superintendent Weekly Update, we shared some of the activities. So we'll share more of those NAPID schedules. Kim, I think are they online? I'll have to look. I know they're in the update and we put them out. Yep. So we'll make sure those are really highlighted. I know all the schools are doing mostly virtual events. Early childhood has some special activities planned. So that is Monday. So you'll hear more about that. free virtual learning started. This started yesterday through WILL. So they're one of our partners, and they're offering a lot of free virtual sessions for parents. The series is for ages 3 through 8, and it's called Let's Learn. So starting yesterday, Monday, February 1st at 11 o'clock, they are going to have weekday activities for the community. So we've been promoting this. A lot of people in our community have really been promoting this. So kudos to WILL for coming up with a creative idea to engage families and students. The next UHS Theater Show is coming February 4th through 6th. We shared this out in the superintendent report as well. If you're looking for the link in order to get tickets, the next show is called the Laramie Project. That is it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Board reports. Do we have any board members, anything they'd like to report?
This is Peggy. I just wanted to mention that I've been attending the program council of the district for quite some time now. It's, for those who don't know, the program council brings together teacher leaders and building administrators to discuss issues related to learning environments. And this year, their focus is on social emotional learning. At the program council meeting just this current week, I was very much impressed with the creativity and the flexibility demonstrated by the teachers and the building administrators during this most challenging year. I know our central office administrators have expressed gratitude to our teachers and building principals for their efforts, but I don't think our board has expressed it often enough. So I guess I just want to take this opportunity to say, and I know I speak for all board members, to say how much we appreciate the contributions of our teachers and staff and building principals in creating supportive learning environments for our students during the pandemic. We recognize it has been the most challenging of years and very hard. So thank you to all of you.
Thanks, Peggy. Any other reports? No? Okay, well, if there are none, then I think we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Carter,
Yes.
Member Demmett,
Yes.
Member Patton,
Yes.
Member Pulaski,
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes, Vice President Exum,
Yes.
and President Hall.
Yes, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
You bet.